Episode 227 Above Ground Podcast, Saint Anger.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Coming at you live with real conversations about mental health from the perspective, it's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now your hosts, TPP and Will Foley.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
You cannot serve below. You know what that means, Tim?
What's it mean?
That you are a servant of positive mental health. And while you're here, it's your job, it's your duty to represent positive mental health among your peers.
I try to.
Yeah, I try to as well. I mean, I don't always do well. Sometimes I go out in the world with this angry look on my face and just stomp on my feet like some sort of, upset toddler. But
sometimes it happens.
Sometimes that happens. But anger is what we're talking about today.
Right. Episode 227, War Nerve.
War Nerve.
So it's funny because we all look at anger as this kind of negative thing. And there's also, like, instead of, I always try to, like, not file anything in any category, but instead of looking at it negative, either look at it as neither, or maybe look at some of anger as a positive.
It's both positive and negative.
Right.
I mean,
like a neutral thing.
Anger is only bad if what you do with your anger is bad.
That's how I feel about it.
Right. There's things that we've done with our anger that you could do with your anger that, as a whole, society looks at as bad. Right. For instance, I see the way you people drive on the Northway on 787. You're driving like your life doesn't matter, and neither does anyone else's. That's using your anger to harm others.
It's kind of manipulative.
It is. Let's assume that emotion is anger, but mostly it's fear. I think that there's some anger and fear.
Yeah.
Kind of I think, cocktail.
I do think fear is like almost like the general base of all of that anger.
Oh, for sure.
Whatever comes out, you know what I mean, is fear.
If it all comes from fear, then it's fear. Then and anger is just like what we call it. Because
secondary thing.
When fear comes out, it looks like anger. Well, it can.
I'm gonna actually read something quick. I have I somehow got a box of emotions.
A box of emotions.
Yeah, it's got 80 cards to make sense of your feelings. So it's just kind of like here to help you out and like throw you a bone once in a while. I'm trying to figure out who made it, but I can't really. I don't know. I can't really find the name on there, so I was going to try and give them props. But anyways, so I pulled out some of the cards that were under anger, and this anger card came out, and I just want to read it quick. So anger is an unruly emotion. It includes simmering resentment and fits to peak tantrums caused by exasperation and sudden flares of rage. It can be frighteningly contained or frenzied and violent. It can become abusive, yet it also stokes political action and goals and goads us into working harder. The idea that expressing anger is good for our health is not a modern one. The 11th century Islamic scholar, Butlan, I don't know how to pronounce this, so there's a scholar that explained that since anger directed the body's heat to the extremities, it could revive those who had become bedbound through illness. 4 centuries later, a doctor who treated a patient by continually reminding him of slights from the past, the patient recovered.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, that's what this says. So
I believe it.
Yeah. So a burst of rage can create release and muscular tension, temporarily subduing other, often more uncomfortable emotions. So it can kind of mask things
So anger's good.
Well, I mean, it can, I think it's one of those things where it's, like you said, it's how we perceive it and how we've been indoctrinated to believe that it's always a bad thing, but I think exactly what you said. It's what we do with it. It's how we react to the anger.
Oh, well, of course. And that will lead us to sort of suppress that emotion as well, which in and of itself is unhealthy. Wouldn't you agree? Would you suppress smiles, happiness, laughter?
Sure.
Aren't those also valid?
Absolutely. I think that's but, just like dark and light, I think the same thing. I think anger is going to make the smiles and joys more of what they are.
Right.
Right. Let me just read this again real quick. So a psychoanalysis suggests, let me see. Oh, there it is. So they suggest anger can be a decoy, a flash in the pan outburst that we might unconsciously prefer to the more painful feeling it masks. Which would be the fear, maybe.
So anger will mask your fear.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm scared. It's like a fight, flight, or freeze thing.
Yeah.
And some people, if they fight, it's going to come out as anger.
Sure.
I'm scared you're going to see me. I'm scared I'm going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
I'm scared that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And sometimes, for me, I know that that's the case. And sometimes I'll come out with it'll be more of an anger thing.
Yeah. Wow, that gives me a lot to think about. It should give everyone a lot to think about.
Sure.
Anger is a mask that we wear to hide fear.
I mean, I think a lot of these are. I think worry's a mask as well. Disgust, you think that's a mask, or do you think that's...
Disgust, I think, is involuntary. And it depends on the person also. Like, what disgusts you might not disgust me.
True. No, that's a good point. But that's the same with anger. What angers me may not anger you.
Depends on your tolerance. Yeah, how well can you tolerate that particular emotion? How well can you guard that emotion from being visible? Just because you're feeling it doesn't mean it's outwardly visible on your face. There's a lot of people who feel things that don't express those feelings.
Yeah, which could lead to more anger?
For sure.
More resentment, more vengefulness, more contempt?
I think any emotion that's suppressed doubles. And then you have to feel it. After a certain amount of time, you have to feel it.
Yeah.
So
wait, you said any emotion that we suppress doubles.
And you have to think about it. If you felt something in the moment, someone cut you off in traffic, you're at the grocery store, there's loud kids pushing your cart or bumping into you, and you don't express it in the moment, well, you're going to express it at some point.
Right.
And it's going to be bigger than it was before. But it's also it's important to recognize that your anger towards that jerk in traffic might not be anger towards that jerk in traffic. It's something that happened 14 weeks ago that's coming out in that moment because you saw an opportunity to release that. It's
right. Or it could just be like today. There was I got out of work a little bit later than expected, and as soon as I hit Route 9, it was stopped. It was just dead traffic, and I'm like, I'm not mad at anybody in general. I'm mad like, okay, this is the day that I need to, get home and get ready, and now I have to sit in traffic.
You didn't have control of the situation,
right?
And that made you mad.
Well, it made me what? Before mad.
Afraid. You weren't going to make your deadlines. This is something that recently came to me, and I think this is really important for me to say and for people to hear. I've, for the past 5 or 6 months, had just an overwhelming feeling of anxiety, like in the pit of my stomach. Like everywhere I went, everything I did, I just felt anxious. It's really upsetting. And I started to think about where am I feeling this emotion? And like, it's in my stomach. And I remember when I was a kid, I would get so upset, and my mom would try to comfort me. She goes, "Where do you feel your anger?" I'm like, "In my stomach." I'm like, "Oh, I'm feeling this in my stomach. This is anger. What I'm feeling is anger." I asked myself, why am I angry? After some inner dialogue, I understand that I'm afraid. What am I afraid of?
Right.
More inner dialogue. I'm forcing myself to choose to surrender to things that I cannot change And the act of surrender makes me afraid.
Yeah.
And when I'm afraid, I get angry.
Yeah.
And here we are.
I love it. That's
Okay.
Perfect.
So
perfect.
if I'm walking around with anger in my belly, what am I supposed to do with it? Tim, please tell me, what am I supposed to do with my anger?
Well, I think exactly what you did with it is pinpoint and go back and retrace your steps and then connect the dots.
Okay.
So start at, where am I feeling it?
There you go. Okay.
So start, where am I feeling it? My body, whether, you know what I mean?
Where's your anger right now?
And then
your
go-
shoulders?
Right.
In your hands?
Right.
In your legs bouncing?
Right.
Is your gut burning?
And then figure out, like you said, what do you ask yourself? Is it anger? Why am I angry?
Why are we angry?
I mean, you did it. You did it right there. You just did it in your little segment. Is like you broke it down.
Yeah.
That's how it should. In my eyes, I'm not a professional, but that's how it should be done.
Well, just the act of identifying it, giving it a name, feeling it, finding it inside
Did
of
it
you.
loosen up? Let me ask you that. After you did that, were you kind of like, whew, like a little bit of weight lifted, or were you?
There's moments of that sort of ease. There is ease that comes from understanding exactly what it is, but it doesn't remove it completely. It's still there.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
It's a little bit of push and pull at this point.
Okay.
All right. It's not like this mystery feeling. Now I know what it is. Now I can go from there. I think now I have ground to stand on.
There you go.
Right?
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Yeah.
Right. You have something to tangible, like hold.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I gave it a name. I gave it a face. I've identified where it is in my body, and I understand where it comes from. I'm making a big push in my life to surrender to things that I cannot change. And this is just the path that I'm on, because I believe that I've caused more trouble for myself in the past by attempting to control things that cannot be controlled.
Yeah, man, that's my life right
and perhaps
there.
I'd be better off just surrendering.
Right. That's a word. And even that word
Oh,
gives
God.
me, like, I feel myself.
Yeah,
when you
yeah, me
said it the
too.
first time you went surrender, I'm just like, oh. I don't want to surrender.
Mostly we're forced to surrender, and that's shitty. No one wants to be forced to
Right.
surrender.
I think you want to have the control
to surrender.
over surrendering. Yes. I think that's what it kind of, in me, that's like you kind of said it. Like I'm identical in, like, what am I fearing? The outcome that is going to happen that I have no control over.
No control.
And then on top of that, let's double up my fear
Yeah.
and say, now in your head, you know the right thing to do is to let go and surrender.
Right.
And that's even more scary.
It is. It is. We there's things that we should surrender to. These momentary emotions that arise at any point throughout the day. For instance, anger. If anger comes to you and you feel it in your belly and you want to do something and respond to that anger, instead of doing that, surrender to it. Basically, what I'm saying is allow it to exist without responding to its demands. That's, if you respond to every emotion that comes to mind, well, then we're cavemen again, right? We're just whacking people over the head with clubs and just,
Right, you can't-
unfiltered, raw,
Yeah,
animalistic.
you won't be able to live your life if you do that. I
Right.
mean, I think that, let me just stop you there.
Sure.
Because I think that what you just said is key, is to go back and do what you did. So instead of letting your emotions rule you and dictate where you're going, use your anger as an indicator.
Yeah.
Use it as a compass and go, where is this taking me?
Yeah. Because you know where it could go. You have this.
Oh, sure. Sometimes you want it to go there because you're just you're just like this, and you're like, oh, I just get angry and yell, and I'll feel better.
Yeah, of course. If I shout at the top of my lungs, I'll certainly get what I want from
Right.
others.
Yeah, absolutely. If I stomp my feet, you know what that means? I'll definitely get what I want.
Maybe I'll punch a hole in the wall.
I'm going to break something of my own. Oh, this is my car. I'm going to punch the door.
Look at me.
Look at me. I solved the problem.
I don't want to make fun of people who act out on their anger.
No,
'cause
I've done it.
I've done it.
Yeah.
But we all feel foolish afterwards.
Yeah.
Because that momentary emotion that happened to arise at our weakest time of day, at the worst possible time, came out and made us look like a fool. And we were essentially a slave to a moment in time.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
because I think you're
it's
right.
a moment.
But you're a slave to that.
Yes.
Your anger or fear, whatever that is gripping you. You're like controlled by it.
Yeah.
That's a way to look at
It's
it.
that little demon in your ear. Hey,
Yeah.
push that door closed really hard so it slams and makes a sound.
Yeah. We'll feel better if you do it.
Yeah.
Do it now.
Hey, you should yell at that kid that's screaming in the grocery store. Make him feel like he's some sort of little punk. Tell him he's a punk.
Tell him he's a punk. So I think, kind of going back what you said, like, I think a lot of I'm going to use anger because that's what we're talking about. So a lot of the anger that some of us feel is something that was unfinished or offset within us.
Yes.
So it's that emotion that you suppressed, that you weren't able to communicate or to go, hey, you know what? I'm angry right now. I'm going to need to take a moment to kind of figure things out and just I need to sit with my anger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a full sentence. I need to sit with my anger. I need space. I need to sit with my anger.
And when something happens that makes you angry, and you know it makes you angry, and in the moment, as that anger is coming up into your belly and you can feel that heat, that's an opportunity for you to tell yourself the story that you're going to remember. So if you feel like you have some unfinished business, like there was something that was outside of your control, remind yourself it's okay. This will pass. What has just happened is not going to end up ending your life or taking all of your, future happiness away. Whatever just happened, and it's gone now. So we have an opportunity at every point in the day to tell ourselves the story that we remember going forward. You do create the narrative in your life. So when you're upset, when something makes you upset, remind yourself that you're in charge of writing that story and how your memories revolve around that story.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things from my past that make me so upset because at the time I told myself that I need to be upset. I need to be angry for this. I should be angry. I mean, and there's things that really should make you angry.
Sure. But that's the thing. Anger is an emotion. And, like you said, any emotion suppressed is going to be doubled and it's going to eventually erupt. It's almost like any emotion suppressed has to be grieved at some point. Almost.
Absolutely, that's it. Because we're grieving all sorts of deaths that haven't even occurred yet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. Like I'm grieving my own death, and I'm definitely alive. Let me tell you that. But I think about it all the time. It's weird. Why am I grieving my own death? So
yeah, it's legit. I mean, it's like you said, it's our thoughts, and if we reacted to every thought and every emotion, I mean, let's go back to 500 BC and
yeah, and you can do that. And I know a lot of people that are essentially cavemen, and that's how they live their life, just dragging their knuckles and taking what they want and saying anything that comes to their mind.
Yeah,
there's another path that we could take.
Yeah,
there's a more enlightened path, and you do you choose your path, and if anger suits you, then you can be the angry person in the room, and everyone will fear you.
It's funny when you said that. It just Dr. Wayne Dyer came to my mind. One of his quotes is, "There is no path to joy. Joy is the path."
Joy is the path. Yeah. I wish, that I knew a lot of this stuff when I was younger.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember a lot of my childhood was spent just being angry at things outside of my control. And I had good reason to be angry. And I'm sure you could share experiences that made you angry.
Absolutely. But and this is just my opinion. Here's the thing that I feel strongly about is, again, we felt angry because we probably didn't know how to communicate something, okay? So therefore, that anger was looked at in a negative way. Most times I was punished not only for my anger, but by my anger.
Absolutely.
And really, if we rewind and talk about emotions in school and incorporate these things and say to yourself, like you said, I'm going to keep going back to that, any emotion suppressed. So Why do we suppress it? Half the time it's because we don't know how to communicate it.
We don't know how to communicate
If we learn in school, if we learn by other ways, means of educating ourselves and bring awareness to this, to say, hey, you know what? I'm angry right now. I feel like I'm going to say something that I don't want to say, so I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to take a timeout. Which is perfectly acceptable, right?
It's logical too, and if a young person had the ability or the training to say how they felt in the moment instead of suppressing how they felt, and then screaming as a means of communication somewhere down the road when they can no longer suppress that doubled emotion.
Right, because it's not necessarily, again, let's not look at emotions as neither good or bad. Let's look at them as ways that we're trying to communicate.
Yes.
And if we can't communicate it, it just gets more as a toddler. A lot of reason, like if toddler stomps his feet and has a, temper tantrum, it's because they can't communicate what they want to you, right? But somehow we don't, again, this goes back to a couple weeks ago, like how do we ask better questions? Because nothing seems to be working, but we don't really incorporate these teachings to kids, like, hey, guess what? Like, I don't know the proper ways to do this. I'm sure there's better ways, but like sit down your child and be like, tell me what you're feeling. You know what I mean? And talk about it. It's okay to be angry.
Oh, yeah.
You can be angry all day, but what is not okay is for you to throw something in my face. Or to, spit at me or spit at your friend or take your toy away.
Or raise your hand in anger.
Raise your hand in anger. Yeah. Like you can be angry, but let's think of ways that we can release that or communicate it. Hey, I'm angry that you did X, Y, and Z. It made me upset. So can we figure out a way that won't happen?
I would be shocked beyond belief, and it would be totally out of character if a 3-year-old came up to me and looked me in the eye and said, I am feeling this.
Right.
I am feeling X emotion. Toddlers don't do that.
No.
They're pretty raw human beings.
Sure they are, but I'm saying and I'm not expecting a toddler to do it. I mean, I'm not expecting a 10-year-old to do it, but if we can incorporate these kind of teachings, I mean, maybe it would get better and.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that to incorporate those teachings and how you parent your child is perfectly acceptable and almost necessary. But remember, children don't do what you tell them to do. They do what you do.
That's true, too.
If a child's watching you and you're screaming at the dude in traffic or stomping your feet around the house because the Yankees lost, you're going to, sort of imitate that behavior.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
That's how you learn to be a human being, by watching the people around you and kind of doing what they do. It's acceptable, and it's also the path. And then the path takes you to a place where you have perspective, and then you end up sitting where we're sitting, explaining that perspective to people who want to know.
Right. You can't get to this place by just sitting there and not experiencing life.
Okay, so you got to go down that path, which means you have to make those mistakes, which means you have to suppress anger to learn that you shouldn't suppress anger.
Oh, I think that that's a tough one. I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think that it's almost embedded that we suppress it. It's just not in our culture. Like you said, if a child did that, you'd be like, so like what? But I'm sure somewhere in this world, there's a culture that are like they can do that, and they just know how to react and respond properly.
So obviously we're not toddlers, we're not teenagers, we're not even young men anymore. But now we're at this point, this stage in our life, and we know what anger is. We know how it feels. What would you recommend someone at this stage in their life do with their anger when they feel it? How would you attempt to tell them how to address that emotion?
Well, I guess first I would exactly do what you did earlier, is to say it, why do you feel angry?
Right.
Why, is it anger? Like, why are you feeling, what is it that brings you to this question?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, define your anger, what you're doing, how does it feel, where is it? Okay. Kind of go backwards, I guess, to go forwards. Okay. Kind of retrace some steps and say, where do you feel it? What's going on? Is it certain? It may be a set of beliefs that you're not willing to give up.
Yeah.
That you're just stuck to, and you get upset at somebody else because they don't believe what you believe.
Yeah.
Well, like, that's just kind of silly, right? It's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like you're a toddler. But some people have beliefs that they don't want to let go.
Yeah.
So it's many angles, but I would say that I would start with being mindful.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
A lot of things start with just that, like just being acutely aware of
Right.
what it is that you're feeling, where it derives from, and what to do with it next. And
Intentionally be aware, throughout your day if that anger pops up.
it's really difficult to do many things with intention.
It is.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that we do.
But when you get to that point of I've had enough,
Mm-hmm.
this has fucked with my life long enough.
Yes.
I'm done with it, then you will intentionally be aware.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would recommend to anyone out there who's listening who struggles with controlling anger, what's worked for me is tell yourself, before I act on this feeling, I'm going to wait a minute. I'm going to count to 60.
That's such a tough thing, but I like
3.
it.
And when 60 seconds is done, how am I feeling? I still want to yell, okay, 60 more seconds, go. 1, 2, and then you just keep going. I'm going to count to 5 minutes now.
So let me ask you a question, because I like this, but let's get into a real world situation
Right.
for a second. And I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm in front of you. Like, are you just gonna? And I'm kind of getting heated now.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jordan, like, what's going on? Like, you keep telling me to wait a minute. Now you're waiting. Now I'm waiting 2 minutes. Like, what's going on? Like, and that may entice you to be more angry.
It certainly would. I think at that point, if you're struggling to fully articulate what it is that you're experiencing, use your words to the best of your ability. Be very plain spoken and simple in your intent. Say, I'm having a difficult time right now. I'm going to count to 60, and then I'll talk to you when I'm done with this moment. I need a moment of pause.
No, I agree
before
with
I
that.
respond to how I'm feeling.
I think
That's
that
it.
should be a thing now. I think we should really do that. Like,
Take
hey,
a moment of pause.
right.
Yeah.
And look at it more at, I'm doing this out of love and respect for you.
Love for
'Cause
myself and love.
Right,
Yeah.
but also towards the other person. Like, I care about you. I want to be able to respond
Yes.
in a helpful way and not react and cause more havoc.
Because we've all been there. We've all been in that moment where we just fly off the handle and say something out of anger that we then have to work extra hard to backpedal and explain at some other point if the person's forgiving enough to allow us to explain.
But then, like you said, then I feel like shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some people are like, oh, they're just assholes and they get angry. No, like at times, like it's happened for me, and I get more angry at myself.
Yes.
Because I reacted that way.
So let's talk about the cycle of anger. Anger, obviously, as we've talked about, comes from fear. Fear suppressed becomes anger doubled. Anger expressed becomes what? A situation that makes you feel angry and fearful. And then
I don't know. Wait, what did you say? Anger suppressed or anger expressed?
fear suppressed becomes anger expressed. All right? Once you express that anger, then you begin the cycle all over again, because what you've done is however
So find a more productive way, a better way to express the anger.
instead of following that cycle of anger.
Right.
All right? You know where it derives from. You know where it goes. You know that you have to go back to the
and
beginning
this is
again.
where I like to bring in my whole routine maintenance thing.
Perfect.
Like, be
There we go.
proactive with it. So in the morning time, if you can start your day off with 3 minutes of meditation, breathing, just sit there and let whatever's going to happen. Thoughts come into your brain, let them come, but just kind of wash them away, let them flow like a river. Just 3 minutes out of your morning, just to calm the body. And if you need to get up and shake around a little bit, some people jog or whatever. Everybody's got their thing. I'm just saying, like, this is like a scientific way to do it, but it's also it's a good way for me to start my day, because it's just like, it just brings me down a notch,
Great advice, Tim. I think most people...
So to do that, to stay on top of it, I would like to believe that it's going to make that reaction time less. It's going to give you that time to go, that's like split second to go, I need 60 seconds.
Yeah.
That second in your mind to go, wait a minute, I need a minute, remember?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that split second, that's very quick.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to count to 3.
And you said something there that your morning routine, your rituals, like this routine that you go through every single day. If you're feeling this tension, you get up and you move your body, you wiggle your arms. If you're feeling a lot of tension, maybe you can go for a walk. If you're feeling an overwhelming amount of attention, maybe you could run or go to the gym or hit a punching bag, right? This outward expression of internal energy ends up subduing that rage that we struggle to suppress throughout the day.
Right. I mean, I look at these as positive expressions.
They are positive expressions. You can do that. If you're out there and you're wondering, how do I keep myself from having these outbursts?
Find a flight of stairs. Go up and down the stairs a couple times, and then when you go, whew, holy cow, whoa,
Yeah.
and then you're like, whoa, wait a minute, my body's kind of relaxed.
I'm relaxed, and now this barking dog inside of me is all of a sudden just sleeping with his belly up in the air, right? So we all got this dog. Who's a good boy? We all got this dog inside of us, right? And we're not taking it for a walk, and it gets all of this energy. And what's it do with its energy? Barks at people when they walk by the house. Barks at the mailman. Bites people.
Right.
Because you're not.
Is the dog a bad dog because it's barking?
No.
Because it's what? It's trying to.
Is your anger bad because it's screaming?
Right.
What are you doing with it?
Right.
Walk your dog.
Walk the dog.
Walk the dog.
Walk your dog.
You should walk your dog.
Walk the dog. Yeah, I mean, I yeah.
But that's how I look at anger as an emotion, as an attribute. You know, it's not what it is that's bad. It's what you do with it that's bad. And if you suppress it,
agree.
it's like locking your dog inside all day. It's going to tear the couch apart, pee on the furniture, and it's your fault. You know you got to take your dog for a walk.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's a responsibility.
It's
that
a responsibility.
We all have. Take the responsibility. So for you to take responsibility, is that part of your routine for going to the gym and working out? Is that part of that, or is that?
That's a part of it, and I find that like as I get older, it's less and less a part of it. I don't need as much time in the gym as I did when I was a young man, and it's not because it doesn't help. It helps, but what helps more is like some stuff that we might have talked about before. Is just as these emotions come up, give them a name, communicate it to the best of your ability, and give yourself pause. All right, suppressed emotions are just the most toxic thing that we can do to our emotional lives. Whatever you're feeling, if it's not spoken, felt, heard, understood, it becomes a bigger thing that just gets out of our control.
And there's actually recent studies that show anything like that suppressed, like that's like it can cause cancer. It can cause tons of inflammation within the body.
You see it in people's posture.
Yeah.
You just see their shoulders slumped or their shoulders up by their ears.
It can be very detrimental to your life, your well-being.
And it's tough to talk about exactly how it is that you're feeling, especially if it's perceived negative emotion, because people might be afraid. What is his intention? What is he going to do with this emotion once he communicates it? It's very difficult. I'm not saying this is easy. What I'm saying is that if you feel that you need to communicate how it is that you're feeling in the moment, that would be far better off than not doing so. And even if you say it out loud to yourself in an empty room or write it down on a piece of paper, right? Let it be known. Externalize it in a healthy way.
Write it down. I like that.
Write it down.
Yeah. When you were saying that before about you taking your 60 seconds and stuff.
Yeah.
I know that for me, like with the world of like texting now, it's almost like you start to text, you're like, and then you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So I try to bring myself back and go, if I was face to face with this person, like I need to keep that composure. Even though I'm texting, I need to keep that composure as a practice for myself.
And it's so difficult.
It's so difficult
in today's world of instant gratification and text messages and digital communication to just give an unfiltered, unrestrained response that we know can inflict intense emotional damage on anonymous people across the globe. to not be that toxic individual that goes out of their way to attack individuals and exploit their vulnerabilities. It's up to you to practice what you preach. And if you're on the side of mental wellness, then you know damn well that everyone's experiencing their own struggles every single day of the year, no matter what. Be as kind as you possibly can to yourself and to others. If you're feeling something, feel it. Try not to express an emotion that could be damaging to others. And as you express those emotions, be kind.
Kind to yourself.
Kind to yourself. You know, it's not that you shouldn't be expressing these emotions, but you shouldn't be oppressing these emotions as they arise. You got to feel these things.
Well said. Yeah.
There's something I'd like to read that.
That's right. Yeah.
That I myself have written, and it relates to anger, and these are my own words, and I have a poetic way of writing, so it's open to interpretation. It says, "I cannot change the past, but I can learn from the past if I'm brave enough not to shroud my eyes from what I've done wrong. I'm flawed, but I recognize this and seek to fulfill a higher purpose, even if that means confronting that which I fear the most, the dragon. And when I finally and bravely laid eyes on it, I saw that the dragon was me."
Nice.
So,
and that's actually, you know what? That's actually, I think, a way. I mean, which we kind of just recently talked about was writing it down. I think that not even necessarily sticking to like an emotion or what you're feeling, but just writing in general, it has its way of coming out through that
in ways that you could never, you can't speak these feelings. Sometimes they have to be written down to be fully understood.
Yeah.
Write into a notebook, put the notebook away for a year, and then read it at some point later on. And then you finally understand what it was you were feeling back then. You know?
One of my favorite Will Foley quotes was, sometimes the best therapy doesn't look like therapy at all.
God, that's so true.
Right?
That is so true.
It is. And I think writing can do that. I think that can, you know what I mean? If you're angry, if you're feeling something, or even if you're feeling any emotion, you know, just getting something out on paper, whatever you're feeling, you know, you don't have to stick to any script. Just write. Just get stuff out, you know, clear out the mental mess that's in your head and get it out on the paper.
Pen and paper are very inexpensive.
Yeah.
You should have lots of it around if you have things that you want to say that you have trouble saying. So what do you think, Tim?
Excellent. Another episode in the books. And shout out to Will Foley.
Shout out to Will Foley. Wish you were here, man.
But we're holding the fort down. So thanks to Jordan for being with us today. And thanks everybody out there who is listening. We appreciate the support.
We sure do.
So until next week, get well.
Be safe.
Stay above. Thank you for giving us a listen. New episodes every Wednesday. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can share, rate, review, and even subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Other ways to support the show, follow us on social media, share the content, share our episodes. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/abovegroundpod. For further concerns, show ideas, or just to say hi, you can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting mental health. Keep the conversation going and stay above.